All right, so I'm back. You might notice I'm a little lower energy in this video. I am still recovering from COVID, so dealing with that. But that's why I haven't been posting these past couple of days. But I'm back with a top 7 video. The video is going to be these 7 moves that I think are potentially league-shattering, using that word a little bit loosely because obviously none of these moves would really shatter the league, but the ones that could alter the league the most, that could still happen realistically, and some of these possibly will happen. So it's really just going to be like the 7 players I thought could be on the move and also where they could potentially go. So number 7, Dwayne Brown to the Titans, which, okay, listen, an offensive tackle signing with a team is not necessarily incredibly league-shattering. That's definitely too harsh of a word, but it could be an interesting thing that could happen. So, for one thing, Dwayne Brown, very good tackle. He's still yet to be signed, so wherever he goes will be fascinating. The Titans don't really need a left tackle. Taylor Lewan hasn't been great these past couple of years, but I'm still willing to accept that he'll probably turn it around and still be a good player. But it's the right tackle that's a question mark. And I don't know if Brown is going to just step in and play right tackle. I don't know if that's going to happen. They do have Dylan Radunz, who was a second-round pick last year and didn't look great, but only played like 100 snaps, so I don't know how to define that too much. They could also use, I think, some interior help, as it looks like Aaron Brewer might be a starting guard for them, which they could, it would be easier if you just bolster up the tackle position, just give one less weak point potentially. So it could make some sense, and also he's a very good player, and the Titans were a 1 seed last year, so potentially just getting an upgrade there. They have a little bit of money where they could get an offensive lineman, so this could be a league-changing move, certainly. Also, how about Will Fuller and Trey Flowers going to the New England Patriots? Doesn't this make total sense for both of these guys? The Patriots still have a little bit of money to work with. Again, pay less attention to the cap space and more attention to how much cash you have spent. The Patriots have spent less cash than cap space. They're one of the few teams that can say that. They can barely say it, but they can, so you can go over that if you want to. And doesn't Will Fuller just seem like, of course, the Patriots would take a chance on him? Someone who's great at a couple of things, which is what the Patriots like. Not necessarily are you a complete receiver, are you great at certain qualities of being a receiver, which Will Fuller certainly is if he can stay healthy, so you might get him at a bargain. And then Trey Flowers, who has, done a lot of great things for the Patriots, and they're, see Jamie Collins, for example, of someone who they'll bring back and prove that, in our system, we can make you work. So this could be something I could see happening, both of these moves. Also, how about the Vikings signing J.C. Tretter, center, formerly from the Cleveland Browns? He's a very good center, and again, the Vikings are a team that's trying to compete right now, and one of the biggest issues is their offensive line. I think that their tackles are okay. It's their interior that really could use some work. They could really use a guard. They spent a 2022 second rounder on Ed Ingram. Maybe that'll work out, but I don't know. You also have Garrett Bradbury currently at the center position, who has not lived up to the hype of being a first-round pick, to put it mildly. So he hasn't been a disaster necessarily, but he just hasn't lived up to the hype. So potentially getting a really good, player in Tretter, maybe, I don't know, maybe Bradbury could play guard, who knows? But you could at least bolster up that interior. Again, league shattering, maybe not, but it's a move that could happen. Number 4, now we're getting into the real moves that could legitimately happen and will make headlines if they do happen. Baker Mayfield still could go, and if he does end up leaving, I think the Giants are an interesting team. I'm going to throw them out there, of a team that potentially could go after Mayfield, simply because, again, they have some cash to spend. The cap space is kind of more of their issue than the cash itself, so they could potentially go out and make this type of move if they wanted to. They could make it work under the salary cap because they're not spending much cash, and that's an important detail to look at. And, if you have Daniel Jones, maybe he'll work out, but it's always good to have a plan B. This is actually almost identical to what the Tennessee Titans did in the Marcus Mariota situation. They still had Mariota, they wanted to give him another year, but they also went out and got Ryan Tannehill as kind of a plan B, and it ended up being a good decision, as Tannehill ended up working out and being a really good player for them. Who knows if Mayfield will do that, but it's the same logic of, let's take a chance, let's go into the next season with at least a plan B. I think Mayfield could be an interesting plan B. So Giants, I don't know if it'll be them. Maybe it'll be someone else. But Baker Mayfield getting traded would certainly be an interesting move that would get a lot of headlines. Number 3, how about Julio Jones going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Doesn't just kind of feel like this is going to happen a little bit. The Buccaneers do not have much money to spend, so that's probably the main thing standing in its way. will they be willing to go out and spend that much money? They've been spending a lot of money these past couple of years, but that's part of why I think it could actually happen. We've talked about how you can borrow money from future years if you want to, and Tampa Bay is taking full advantage of that, as they know this year is most likely their last year of, during their window. This is the last chance, because once Brady retires, they're in a tough spot. That month when it looked like Brady was retired, we were kind of saying, yeah, Tampa Bay looking to be in a tough spot. But if you add, a Julio Jones, it could just make that window not extend it, but, give you a better shot during this window. Just because last year, when wide receivers got hurt, that was a real issue. So why not make sure you go into the season with just another guy who has potential to be elite? And if isn't, hopefully he can still at least be solid and be a solid contributor, because you don't need him. You still have Evans, Godwin, and Russell Gage, but why not have a chance to have Julio Jones as your fourth option? Number 2, Odell Beckham Jr. is still on the market. And how about the Ravens, right? They're kind of in the middle of the road in terms of cash spent, so I don't know if they could afford it or can't afford it. We don't see their books, so we don't know what their actual cash is, but assuming they could afford it, this would be something I think would make a ton of sense. Beckham would fit perfectly in that system if he can run all the routes that Greg Roman and John Harbaugh are going to want him to run. But on top of that, he's someone who can win consistently against man coverage, which Lamar Jackson has never had, and getting a good receiver could go a long way for them. Now, we don't know Beckham's health, and he probably won't be ready week 1, but that's okay. If you're the Ravens, you're trying to win a Super Bowl. So if Beckham comes back late in the season, that's still all right, and that could still be exactly what you need to get kind of a bargain signing here, a 1-year deal, but then have him be someone who can really play good football towards the end of the stretch and into the postseason, where you'll really need him, when the games are the most important. So this would be a huge move if it were to happen. Again, Beckham, wherever he goes, I think is going to help his team out in some way. Number 1, Antonio Brown to the Arizona Cardinals. Listen, Antonio Brown is a free agent, and he apparently seemingly wants to play football. So if that's the case, I know a lot of teams are going to sit here and say, I'm not touching Antonio Brown. I know a lot of Cardinals fans are going to sit here and say, yeah, not interested. I get it, because the last we saw of him, he was walking off the field, seemingly quitting on his team, although, again, he says something different. Who knows what actually happened there? So there's a lot of issues with Brown, and we know that it's not just one instance with him. He's had 1,000 instances off the field or on the field with certain teams. But the one reason why I feel like a team might still talk themselves into it is how dominant he can be. He is someone who, when he's on the field, is still one of the best wide receivers in football. And so for a team like the Arizona Cardinals, who maybe are starting to think, like maybe Cliff Kingsbury's thinking, hey, I don't know how many years left I got if I don't really, have a good postseason run. Getting someone who has won, I believe he's won multiple Super Bowls. He did win one with the Buccaneers, most notably, where he had a big impact in that Super Bowl. Getting someone like that who can be very good, that is interesting. I think there's a chance the NFL that says, yeah, we're not going to deal with Antonio Brown just because his antics are such a wild card. But I do think that a team like the Cardinals would kind of make some sense. I don't know if it'll be them. Who knows? This is just me coming up with ideas off the top of my head. That's all I'm doing. But I find it fascinating. So let me know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on all of this? Do you agree that Antonio Brown could end up going to a team like the Cardinals? Do you agree with any of these, or do you disagree with them all? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.